to the Cult of Domesticity podcast, a podcast about history, true crime, and whatever life brings us. I'm Courtney, and every week I am joined by another fascinating person. Let's see what we're going to talk about this week.
So welcome back, devotees. Now that you've gotten that great intro.
This show is sponsored by Boobies and Noobies.
I wish. I love her. Such a great show.
It is.
It is not true crime. There is rarely murder in there. I think once there was a murder. And I was just like, murder? Yeah, in the book. So that was like, ooh, fun. But Linzi's back from 33% Pulp.
Hey, that's me. It's me.
Linzi's back again.
Guess
Linzi's
who's
back.
Tell a friend.
Linzi's back. Linzi's back. Linzi's. That should be your ringtone now.
I'll strip it and make it your, like, if you were to ever call me, it's gonna be, that'll be my ringtone for you.
If I get a job in California, and I'm applying to jobs for the umpteenth time, or if I make it back to California in the southern portion.
Call me.
That's true.
Courtney.
I mean, I did change your you're gonna enjoy this. I changed your info in my phone, and I put crabs in it.
Yes! That's hilarious!
Because you need to have reference points for everyone.
Because, dear listener, not because I have crabs, rather it is because on 33% Pulp, we take books, divide them into thirds, and recap them across 3 episodes, and our very first book was called Night of the Crabs, about a bunch of killer crabs that kill people, so...
In Wales, of all places. That was the best part, because you're like, where is this?
We can't pronounce the names of the places or anything, it's just like, in Wales. Yeah. So that's awesome. Thank you for putting crabs in my name.
I just remember listening to the first episodes and I was like, this is hilarious and I love it. I love everything about it. How do I not subscribe to this and just enjoy every aspect? Because you're just, oh my god, the crab ones are extra fun because they're semi-raunchy for no reason. And then the last one, I think we were like, it's the king crab, and they're like, psych, it's not a king, it's a queen.
Yeah, we had a queen crab. The queen is in Australia, the king is in Wales, and it was...
These crabs to get around.
Yeah, it's world domination, really. Be aware about crabs. We learned a little bit about crab anatomy, but you were on the show twice.
Yes.
Yes, you did the companion episode for one of our Contra-Wife companions. And then you joined us for Do Not Murder Before Christmas. You gotta murder Poot. After Christmas. With Poot. Yeah.
Which I left. I think I sent you something a while ago where something I was doing autocorrected or I mistyped and it came out Poot. And I was just like...
Condition. Poot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for work, yeah. Because it was a house condition is Poot. Not poor. Poot. Oh. So... Are you ready for some murder?
I am ready for not myself being murdered, but I'm ready to hear about murder. Yeah. Murder.
So, dear listeners, Linzi knows this already. I was researching the person. It's a serial killer. And I'm going through. And you know it's a bad sign when you open the Murderpedia page, because I feel like that's how everyone starts their murder search when you're doing research. And there's one article. And I was just like, and not a long one. And I think I was in the office and I go, oh shit. So I gathered everything and my notes were very scant. And so I go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you a double Ohio serial killer episode.
A twofer. It's a twofer. A 2-for-1. I like it. But they're both in Ohio? How many serial killers can one state have?
I don't know.
All right.
Like
okay, never mind.
You're in California. Ohio.
California, never mind. Scratch the question.
Wait, the real question is how many serial killers can Southern California hold? The answer is a lot.
A lot, actually, unfortunately.
I feel like that's Ohio, too. Yeah.
Really the United States. It's something we're famous for, I think, you know.
The lead poisoning. Have you heard the theory that the reason why, besides, like, we've had less serial killers is because there was a lot of like lead paint and like more harsh chemicals in like toys and stuff earlier on. So people like were having more mental issues because of like lead poisoning and heavy metal poisoning and all this, and it just like changed their brain function.
Oh my god, no. Is this an actual thing or like a theory or?
I
This
think
must
it's
be
a theory.
yeah.
I don't know if
Wow.
anyone's done research on it, but I mean, we've also gotten a lot better at, stopping them, because now they say if the person had the chance, it's most likely they would have been a serial killer, but they catch them on like murder 2 instead of like, murder 48.
Yeah, and like DNA and things probably help.
Yeah, so we're gonna have 2 Ohio gems, two great Buckeyes here, guys. You know what a Buckeye is, right?
I know what a Buckeye is.
Okay.
It's a candy.
That is the correct answer always. It is also a nut. It is our state nut. I don't know why states have state nuts, but it's our state nut in I think tree.
Oh, okay.
And it's the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Like it's a mascot too, or something.
Yes, Brutus. Yeah. He's a Buckeye nut with a body, which is disturbing if you think about it too much.
Okay.
It's disturbing if you look at him too much too, like just someone who doesn't like football. So we have a gentleman named Richard Tingler. I should have looked up how it's
Tingler.
Yeah, born out of wedlock in December 1940. He was raised by a mother who beat him regularly, interspersing punishment with frequent reminders that her son was born in sin. Still a healthy childhood. It sounds great.
Oh, God. Wait,
so he did whatever.
One more. He's born in the 40s, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 1940 to be specific, the beginning.
Okay.
So we're post-depression, mostly. Wait. Yes, mostly.
Yeah.
So he did what everyone does, and you enlist in the army or the military. He enlisted in the Air Force, and he experiences his first run-in with police in June 1959 while stationed in Alaska. Funny thing, my great uncle was stationed in Alaska with the Air Force for a little bit, but later on, thank God.
Yeah.
Tingler decided to go AWOL with a friend. He was arrested on charge of burglary in Anchorage and wound up pleading guilty to 4 other break-ins. So that's a total of 5 break-ins at this point in 59. So he is 29. So he was transferred several times during his 2-year federal sentence because, he's in the Air Force. When he was released, he returned home to Chillicothe, Ohio in February 1961. He was released from Chillicothe because there's a prison there in Ohio in February 1961. There's also a suspected serial killer going around Chillicothe currently, but they also are in the midst of the giant opioid epidemic that is dominating southern Ohio.
Yeah.
6 months later, with the same Air Force buddy, he was busted in Portsmouth, Ohio on 13 counts of breaking and entering. So we're up to 18 counts of burglary.
This guy. Wow.
He's going for that punch card. The burglary punch card.
Like if you get enough punches, then you get they just give it to you. Like just take the TV.
The government's like that 20th one is free. So he's sent off to state prison. Who knows? He could have been sent to the famous Mansfield prison, aka Shawshank, for a term of 1 to 15 years.
That's quite a stretch.
I think it's how good he was, like in prison. And he was paroled in August 1964, so that's
3 years?
Yes. So 3 years in prison.
For burglary.
For burglary. For 13 burglaries. That's the thing. He did some more burglarizing. Burglars.
Burgling.
Burgling. I was trying to think of a verb. It's burgling. And he went back to prison. He was finally released in February 1968. So he's been in and out of prison since 59. So almost a decade in and out of prison. Now, we're going to see him upgrade. September 16th in 68, early morning joggers found 4 bodies laid out side by side in Cleveland's Rockefeller Park. So he's literally going to hit the entire state, pretty much. Well, most of the state.
4 bodies.
4 bodies. The victims were slain by multiple gunshots from 2 different weapons, including tavern proprietor Joseph Zoldman, 2 of his part-time bartenders, and a young female sex worker. Again, I'm pulling these from articles that are older, so terminology, guys. The the authorities determined that they were taken hostage in the tavern robbery, conveyed to the park at gunpoint, and then murdered there to eliminate witnesses. So, and that's like all you get on there. Trust me, I've looked. So, a month later, still in 68, on October 20th, a lone gunman enters a dairy bar in Columbus, Ohio.
Is it the dairy farmer?
Oh, UDF? I don't know if it's UDF. It could be a UDF. Who knows? UDF, great ice cream, great prices on gas. Not a sponsor. I just went there. I go there a lot. Near closing time. So he comes in. He got $562 out of the register, which, good for you for making that much money, dairy bar.
Seriously.
And he ordered manager Phyllis Crow and the two teenage employees, Susan Pack and Jimmy Stevens, into the back room. He binds their hands, and just as he is beginning to leave, he stops in the doorway, gets angry, and snarls, quote, "What the hell? I ain't got nothing to lose. I'm gonna kill you all," end quote. So, great guy.
How do they know that he said that, though? So one of them must have lived.
We'll get to it. He took a door, the door of the safe off its mountings. He advanced on Pack and Stevens, pounding their skulls in a frenzy. Then turned to Crow. He twisted a coat hanger around her neck, choking her into unconsciousness and leaving her for dead. She woke and struggled free. Half an hour later, she found both her employees had been shot in the back of the head. So he thought she was already dead, and so he didn't shoot her. They did ballistics on the gun, and they figured out one of the guns was used in the Cleveland shooting. And they were going through mugshots, and she pointed out Richard Tingler as her assailant. So that's a lot of murdering and attempted murdering.
Six murders.
6 murders and 1 attempted murder.
Plus 13 burglaries.
I think we are way past 13 burglaries. I think when they stop counting your burglaries.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tingler was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted list, and you can look up, I'll probably share it, his photo for it, on November 8th, 1968. But by the time he had his name on there, he had changed his name and was living under the name of Don Williams. He secured employment on a farm owned by Alvin Hoffman, which I laughed because one of my Patreon episodes is on Matthew Hoffman, who is from Mount Vernon, Ohio, and he really had a thing for trees. I'm not kidding you, he had a weird thing for trees, man. So you gotta subscribe to Patreon to hear all about that. But so Alvin Hoffman lived near Dill City, Oklahoma. Hoffman was like, this employee is strange because he carries a pistol everywhere he went, but Williams was a decent worker, and a love of firearms did not make a man stand out in Oklahoma. Because, it's in the 60s. You're like, okay, fair.
Oklahoma in the 60s. You just have your firearm, I guess. Yeah.
I don't know what wildlife is out in Oklahoma. I'm going to assume some coyotes. So, yeah, that would be good. All I'm thinking of is buffalo, but I don't think that size firearm's going to take down a buffalo. They're quite large.
Buffalo, big.
Yeah.
I've seen the wings, though. The wings are quite small. Just kidding. Buffalo.
Oh, I just got it.
We can move on.
They are tasty. So, March 30th, 1969, so like a year later, not even a year, November to March, and however many months that is, Tingler's photograph was broadcast on an episode of the FBI television series, which did not know that was a thing before that. Want to go find that, because that sounds like a great time.
The FBI TV show?
Yeah, it's just called The FBI. And it's a television series.
Wow. Yeah, I want to see that.
So, guess who watched that? Our good old friend Don Williams. And he's like, shit, someone's going to recognize me. Because at that point, you have, 20 channels? So,
yeah.
You're only watching so much. He became increasingly nervous on the job, and one morning he failed to report to work. On April 27th, 49-year-old Brooke Hutchinson checked into a motel in Gilman, Illinois, accompanied by a new acquaintance, D.L. Williams. The next morning, the maid found Hutchinson dead in his room, shot 4 times at close range with his cash and late model Ford LTD missing. I have no idea what kind of car that is. Don't ask. I'm assuming it's a vehicle of some sort made by a Ford motor company. On April 29th, Don Williams returned to the Hoffman farm driving Hutchinson's car. He left again the next morning, returned, minus the car on May 2nd. So he's going back and forth, all this. I mean, Hoffman has got to think it's weird, but his erratic behavior was drawing attention from the neighbor, and Tingler's time is, like, even, like, because he's bringing attention to himself, they're like, that dude's weird. Mm-hmm. By mid-May, Ouachita County Sheriff's Office was receiving complaints about Williams and his indiscriminate gunfire. You know, just shooting things.
Just shooting. Could you not, sir? Sir, could you not?
Sir, could you not just shoot things?
Indiscriminately?
Yeah. Wow. So, was he shooting indiscriminately? He killed a neighbor's dog without provocation. I know! I was mad too. How dare he?
I'm sorry. This is the first time he's killed 6 people already. I'm like, that's my reaction to a dog. But
he
still.
Killed a dog! Ha! Which after the episodes that are coming before this, it's just more depressing. And the farmhand was fond of shooting glass insulators from high-tension poles lining the highway. So he's just shooting at the posts along the highway. That's not good. So deputies are like, okay. And the locals are like, yeah, he looks really like this Tingler guy. So you should be careful, because he's on the FBI's most wanted list. Wow. On May 19th, a team of federal agents joined sheriff deputies on a second visit to the farm. They found Tingler working in a field, relieved him of his automatic pistol, and took him into custody without resistance.
That's good. That's lucky.
Yeah. He was tried on 6 counts of murder. He was convicted and sentenced to die. This was commuted to a life sentence in prison. I believe because at this point, the death sentence for the whole country was commuted. We went away for that for a little bit, and then we came
really?
Back.
I didn't know.
I don't remember what. Put in thinking music. I'll look at this up. So, in 1972, in Furman v. Georgia, the U.S. Supreme Court basically reduced pending death sentences at the time to life imprisonment because of a lot of cases. It was a 5-4 decision, and because it was a violation of the 8th and 14th Amendments in the Constitution. So that would be the 8th is imposing extensive bail, excessive fines, or cruel and unusual punishment. And then 14 is
excessive bail. I feel like that's still a thing.
I feel like that should be a thing. Equal rights and protections under the law, and it was implemented after the end of slavery. So, but 4 years later, it was put back into place because legal things. I don't know legal things. It's too modern for me. I don't know. So he died March 18th, 1995 of organ failure in a Columbus, Ohio hospital.
Wow. So you said 95?
Yeah.
So he was 55 years old. That's all I had.
Yeah.
I'm just doing math.
It's probably a lot of murdering on your soul and shooting things. It was really that dog. That dog came back for a vengeance.
I would hope so. He's haunted by the dog.
He was just living his dog life.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Dick Tingler. Okay.
Yep. Well, he has to have 3 names. Oh.
What's his middle name?
Don't have it on here, and I don't know why it's not on here.
Oh.
It's Richard Lee Tingler Jr.
Wow. That's a serial killer name. The middle name Lee, and especially with the junior at the end.
Yeah.
Unlucky.
Yeah, so that was our first Ohio serial killer. And like I said, we were not going to have enough, because they were literally hitting half an hour now, and I was just like, yeah, this is not enough information for a solo episode. So we're going to go to a Dayton serial killer, and just prepared to get mad, because he's in the KKK.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I just thought I was going to throw it out there. Like, everything I found about him was not directly about him. It's about desegregation in Dayton. If you're looking for a really good book on the time period and all of that, I didn't get a chance to read it, but it looks really good. It's Blood in the Streets, Racism, Riots, and Murders in the Heartland of America by Daniel L. Baker and Niles Gwen. And Daniel is a former Dayton detective, so he knew a lot about this case and had a lot of access. So we're going to talk about Neal Bradley Long.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of information also about him. So
Neal Bradley Long.
I lived in Ohio most of my life, and I had never heard of him. So
I feel like I've heard the name Richard Tingler before, and this one I haven't heard of, like, even the name of. So this is exciting.
Yeah. So he's a native of Dayton, born in 1927. He was a violent racist who could not abide by any progress in the African American community in Dayton. So, like I said, be prepared to be mad, because you're going to guess who his targeted audience was, or victims were.
Audience. Oy.
So, in 1966, like I said, very minimal information on this man. So, we're immediately jumping to the 60s. He approached local police and confessed to stabbing a black man in 1944, but he was released because detectives could find no record of the crime in their files, which again says something.
Ooh, that's very problematic. There's no record of the crime?
Yep.
You gotta keep records. What the fuck? I mean, wait, can I say fuck? I forget.
Yes.
Okay.
You'll swear up.
Yeah.
That should be my tagline, swear up. So, then, in 1968, Long spends 3 months in the Dayton Mental Health Center under voluntary commitment. So his doctor, or chief of professional services there, said, Dr. Roberto R. Monreal, said that Long was suffering from, quote, a serious mental condition, end quote, and was classified as psychotic.
But, I mean, is that a good thing that because if he, it was a voluntary admission or whatever.
I think it was good, but then again, they released him.
That's not good.
And it's also, you have to think of mental health care at the time.
Yeah.
We're just starting to get into a little better sort of mental health care. I believe they outlawed lobotomies.
I wonder why he, admitted himself. What was the impetus?
Yeah, there's no information on that.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah, that's helpful. When the lobotomy was outlawed in the U.S., or it's at least not popular. I've heard enough. The funny thing is, I've listened to enough podcasts on lobotomy. You'd think I would remember.
I know that they still do I don't know about lobotomies, but I know that they still do ECT and stuff.
ECT is different because I've had family members where it
helped them.
It's helped them. It's much more strategic on where they do it. It was investigated in the 70s, so.
Okay.
But most countries outlawed it in some states in the 70s, so.
Okay.
Yeah, which, we're getting close to that point, so who knows. Well, the police had forgotten about Long, the gentleman who goes in and goes, I stabbed someone in 44. Yeah, they forgot about him. But Dayton was suffering from a 3-year series of shootings of African-American men, and there was about 20 to 30 men that were shot at.
Oh my god.
6 were dead, 14 were wounded, and basically the west side of Dayton was segregated. So that's where all the African Americans live, and I guess on my ratings it seems like it has changed a little, but not a lot, and the community's doing a lot to bring itself back up, so good for you for bringing yourself up and saying, we're done taking your BS, so, but at this point, having, African American men being shot at randomly is bringing Dayton closer to a racial war. So, in the summer of 66, tensions are boiling over on the west side of Dayton. The murder of an innocent African American man, the community rioted against the treatment by the city government and the local police force. So when they said they couldn't find documentation that a black man was stabbed in 44, I'm not shocked. I don't think they had a record for it.
Yeah. This
is in the middle of the civil rights movement, and the citizens felt they needed to voice their opposition against blatant housing segregation, which resulted in their children attending poorly funded schools in predominantly African American areas. On top of that, their white neighbors were really prejudicial. The local police were also as well very racist or very prejudicial in their treatment of them. We also have a prominence of the KKK in the city, and these would lead to the Dayton race riot of 1966, which, as an Ohioan, I never heard of.
I hadn't heard of this.
You hear of the Kent State shooting all the time, but you never hear of this. And I'm like, why do we, like, we had state history in elementary school and middle school. Why don't I know about this?
Yeah.
Well, I guess elementary school, you probably don't want to do race riots. It's a bit much, but in middle school.
Yeah.
Little Timmy, what did you learn today? About the Dayton race riot?
I think it says something. I mean, even if you didn't, like, teach it as a lesson or whatever, I think it's telling that I had never even heard of this, like, a Dayton race riot. So, like, even just the existence of it isn't well known enough, you know?
No. Especially, like, I never knew Dayton was so prevalent with the KKK at this period. Like,
yeah, I didn't know either. I mean, because I associate, this is my biases and, like, limits of knowledge or whatever, but I associate the KKK with, like, the Deep South, not, like, Ohio. So...
Well, the joke is, south of I-70 is the Mason-Dixon line, because northern Ohio and southern Ohio are a little bit different.
Okay.
And
is Dayton South Ohio
south
or something?
of it, yeah.
Okay.
Dayton's along I-70, so I could see where the area. It's probably Dayton. It's not one of the three C's: Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus. Yeah, Dayton. Which are the bigger cities, and then Dayton's like the fourth. It's like the redheaded stepchild.
Okay.
But I mean, they're really well known for, like, the Wright brothers, and, like, there's Wright-Patt Air Force Base there. So I think it's changed a bit, but still, it's just like, Ohio, you need to do better. I love my state, but you need to do better.
Yeah.
In this. Because I think it would really change our outlook of our own state if we knew more about them.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Like how people think of the state. Yeah.
Because you think, oh, you're in the Midwest, we're more progressive, we're nicer. Like, you have this idea, and I'm like, if I would have known, like, we did have this history of, like, segregation and all of this, I would want to do more. You would want to change it. You wouldn't be like, oh, it's fine, because we've always been like this. Or it's like, oh, it's not fine. Everything's just patched up, and, like, everything looks fine, guys.
Yeah.
We're great.
The Wright brothers. Yay!
Yay! So, the murder that basically sparked this race riot was Lester Mitchell, who was sweeping the sidewalk in front of his apartment on 1020 West 5th Street after 3 a.m. on September 1st, 1966, when a shotgun blast tore through his face.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Which, I mean, September, it's still going to be hot in Ohio, I'm not going to lie. It's still going to be really hot, so it might just be... It's finally cool enough to go outside and do things, and you have a job, so you're like, I don't want to do physical effort. Quote, I saw the red of the car and the barrel of the gun, his neighbor, Tommy Campbell, told Dayton Daily News, which is where a lot of the first-hand accounts are coming from. All I could tell was that they were white men. Someone said Les has been shot, end quote. So how do we know that everyone, like, how could he see him that clearly? Well, housing segregation crammed 60,000 black residents into perceived ghetto with neglected schools and discriminated city services. So they're just basically crammed into this one portion. So it's tight. You can see what your neighbors are doing. He was probably also sitting out because it's finally cool. This senseless killing was seen as the spark on top of the kindling that was Dayton's west side. It was a volcanic eruption. There was looting, arrests, riots, armed police response from the National Guard, and it would put Dayton in the national spotlight as the latest American city in the grip of spontaneous rage, which, looking at it, it wasn't spontaneous.
Right.
It had been simmering for a while, but police responded to the scene, and it was chaos, end quote, said Dan Baker, who is a retired Dayton police officer who worked the West End side with 1 year under his belt as a rookie cop that September. That's a great way to start your race riot the first year you're a cop. Well then, quote, many people had been drinking and they were pouring out of bars in the joints, and they were very, very upset about what just happened. Rocks and bottles started being thrown. The crime scene was disrupted, and it began to get completely out of control and spread down Hawthorne Street, William Street, and 4th Street, making their way down to West 3rd Street. And so it's basically just spreading, because they find out this man has been randomly killed, and it, mind you, he wasn't the first one, so you feel like your city's doing nothing to stop this.
Yeah.
And also, it's probably hot.
Yeah,
so you're
which
all
always
hot.
amplifies things. And I mean, if they're not even keeping track of, like, people getting stabbed, then of course there was probably several other incidents prior to this, you know?
I'm pretty sure they can't confirm how many people Long killed because of it. At 10:30 a.m., Dayton's mayor, Dave Hall, spoke into the bullhorn of a police car parked on West 3rd. Surrounded by twisted mannequins and shattered glass, he announced that the National Guard was coming. This resulted in a disturbance of the peace, which had been assumed by portions of the riot and the mob violence. So I think basically some people at that point had it mellows out after a while.
Uh-huh.
And that basically just was like, you want to throw some gasoline on this? Let's throw some gasoline on this, because let's just bring it back on fire. So police in plastic helmets and shotguns stood on an uneasy guard, and the National Guard comes in and assumes order, which I'm assuming wasn't very nicely.
I could see this not being nicely. Also, they were wearing plastic helmets. I feel like that doesn't sound very safe. Okay.
Then again, I mean, I don't know how... We're in the Rust Belt period of Ohio.
Yeah, okay, this is 60s, right? Okay, yeah.
60s, 70s, yeah.
At least they have some kind of protection. And I guess my bike helmet is, like, plasticky foam thing, so... Alright, okay.
So, this is not, like, the first racial violence incident towards African American. They later discover, even though it's not... This is what bothers me. They didn't officially... close the case, saying that Neal Bradley Long was the man who killed him, but it seems most likely it was him, because he's admitted to so many things. He was a member of the Ku Klux Klan, and get ready to feel horrible. In the 1920s, some estimate that, say, 25% of Dayton's population were card-carrying Ku Klux Klan members.
20%?
In the 20s, yeah. And then, so just assume, with this pickup of the civil rights movement, is the second generation of Ku Klux Klan. So, I'm going to assume it's...
Do you think it's more or less or the same?
I think it's similar or more, probably, because there was...
multiplying.
Well, I wouldn't even say that. It's just, if the segregation in the community is so prevalent, and then there's going to be desegregation, so people are going to not like that change to the status quo.
Yeah.
So they might not be card-carrying members. A lot of people they don't have that ideology. They're just like, I don't want things to change.
Yeah.
And it's always been this way. Why can't it always be this way? So you resist change. It's human nature to resist change. And I think some of it's that, some of it are, around Dayton it's very rural, so it's like, you don't get to see different people. You don't get to experience different cultures, so you have a greater tendency to dislike them, make them the other.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, that's at least my viewpoint on it.
Makes sense.
There's a prominent Marinas University on the border. There are several universities. Like, you basically can sense the racial tension in the city. You can cut it with a butter knife. Dr. William Trollinger, professor at the University of Dayton, explains, quote, "In short, Dayton joined Indianapolis, Portland, Oregon, Youngstown, Denver, and Dallas as the hooded capitals of the nation, i.e. cities with the highest percentage of residents as Ku Klux Klan members. There were cross burnings, newspaper articles, and oral interviews suggested a Dayton illuminated by burning crosses in the mid-1920s," end quote.
Wow. Did you say Portland as well?
Yes.
I didn't realize Portland had such a history. Wow.
I mean, I think it depends. The Pacific Northwest is very much Scandinavian and Northern European. And then it's when you see periods of influx of immigrants, influx of change, I laugh always. You like the benefits they bring, but you refuse to accept the people. Mm-hmm. Like, people didn't like the Irish, but who else is going to build your buildings, build your bridges, build your railroads? And same with the Chinese. You know, you didn't want to do it, and then you complain about them.
Yeah.
If they're bringing good to the community, do you want to do the jobs? Do you want to go out in the fields and pick things? no, then stop complaining. That always bothers me. It's like, you complain that there's no jobs, but you're not going to willing to go and do what they do. So detectives, when they were interviewing Long later on, he admitted to shooting a black male on Cincinnati Street, which they later identified as Robert Horde. He stated just prior to that shooting, he shot and killed another black male subject in the Dayton View area, who they identified as Larry Ramin. So he admits to 2. And we know he says he's done more.
Oh, there's so many more if he's admitting to 2.
Yeah. He was at that point, he was in the middle of a spree, but there's no other information unless you can get to case files and like more detailed things. And I think really the system was working in his favor at this point.
Yeah, it sounds like it with the police records.
Yeah, because even the author of Blood in the Streets, one of the authors, Daniel Baker, said when he's interviewed, he was like, their lack of looking into things made him angry in this current stage. He's like, they just didn't, like, the things he said they didn't always go and look into. They just kind of like, oh, sure, you're crazy. And
yeah, they didn't care. Yeah.
It's like, yes, but for the families, it doesn't matter that he's crazy. They just want to know that the killer's caught. And they're frustrated. So what gets him caught? Desegregating schools.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Oh, because that included busing students like Neal's 12-year-old son from one school to another in interest of racial balance. So they were trying to say, okay, because it is historically and even currently obvious that schools with a majority white population have more funding and better supplies. So if you even it out, people are more willing to contribute to both and help bring up the schools that aren't doing well and help even out education levels. Also, the science is behind that if you are going to a more mixed school, you have a better idea of the world. It helps shape you and all of this. So, guess who didn't like the fact that his son was now going to a different school?
This long guy, yeah.
Yeah, Long. So, it included busing a few hundred students, mostly black, to 2 largely white elementary schools. Fair enough. We're going to test it out with a few hundred kids. We're not going to do like the Little Rock 12, which, a few hundred kids, you're like, okay, at least you don't feel isolated.
Yeah.
Well, they put Dr. Charles Glatt, in charge of that. He was really in charge of this, and we'll get more into him. He was to submit to the court another desegregation plan by November. So they're starting to do okay, this is step 1, step 2, move through. The school board, a majority whose members were opposed to the busing, hired a second consultant to devise an alternative plan that would not include busing, across neighborhoods. Well, on September 19th, 1975, Long picked up his boy from a school at the end of the day and promised him, quote, "You won't be bused anymore, son," end quote. So there's contention with the neighborhood. Only an hour later, Dayton's white desegregation planner, Dr. Charles Glatt, was shot 4 times and fatally wounded in his office at the federal building.
You said an hour later?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He picked up his son, dropped him off, went downtown.
Wow. And
Glatt,
shot this guy.
Yeah, Glatt, who was white, was appointed by the federal court to design a desegregation plan for Dayton's public school system. The associates of Glatt said the 46-year-old consultant feared for his safety. He stayed away from his hotel room, preferring to spend a night or 2 with friends around the city. So he's already aware it's not a popular thing in the city, and he's like, yeah, I'm not staying at that hotel you paid for me. That seems like a death trap thing. He changed cars frequently and varied his schedule. So basically, it's like protocol, don't have a schedule, change cars, change places where you are. Glatt was over 6 feet tall with reddish hair and was fond of using his background as a rural boy from Frost, Louisiana, in talking about his philosophy of integration. So he comes from the deep South, and he's like, he would say, quote, "We Southerners are part of you," he told a church group in 1979 talk on integration. "Midwestern cities are filled with folks like us from swamps and hills and valleys, and I pledge to you as an educator and a gentleman that there are some of us who are going to change your school systems, and your children's and others can come out better because of it," end quote. So he had already done this in Indianapolis. So this is his second city, so he knows he's prepared.
Yeah.
Witnesses who were in the federal building at the time said the suspect walked through the open door to Dr. Glatt's office, passed his secretary, and asked the consultant, quote, "Are you Dr. Charles Glatt?" end quote. He shot him 4 times, and then he walked out of the building. So the guard who apprehended Long quoted him as saying, quote, "I did what I had to do," end quote. So they have documentation of Glatt saying he was concerned about how they would react. The community has no voice in it. Like, this is going to be a problem. It's not going to go well. He was basically saying, if we're going to desegregate, we need to get the community in on it, a ground up effort. We can't just do it from the top down.
Right.
Completely. So they identified the subject as Neal Bradley Long, 48 years old, a white service station attendant with a history of mental. So he works at a gas station, basically. Because I don't remember at this point if Ohio, you could pump your gas. Because some states, I know we only have 2 states now that you can't not pump your gas.
So Oregon is one of them, right?
Oregon and New Jersey. He was arraigned in federal court, because remember, he went into the federal building to do this. And Glatt was appointed by a federal court. So you done and fucked up royally, because federal court ain't anything to joke around about.
Yeah.
So, and he was being held without bail on 1 charge of murder, because they didn't know about the rest. So they also discovered he matched the description of a man on late summer nights who gunned down at least 6. So the thing is, I got some information from the New York Times, and they said at least 6 blacks.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
You're like editing on the spot.
Yeah, mentally editing. 6 African Americans as they walked along deserted streets. So they probably were walking home, walking somewhere.
Yeah.
They didn't deserve to die.
Right.
So a former landlord confirmed that Long owned several shotguns, and the police removed several shotguns wrapped in sheets from the apartment he was living in. I don't know if his son was living in there, but it doesn't sound like a great home. As for Mr. Glatt, because he knew of his danger, he carried a small caliber pistol in his briefcase. He never displayed it, but preferred to have open the case with the top facing his visitor, to be like basically where the back of it is facing the visitor. So if they were going to, like, say, if he felt like the meeting was getting too hostile, he had a gun to say, like, hey, cool it.
Oh my gosh.
Because he felt like he was being threatened a lot, which, yeah.
Yeah.
So Long ended up being indicted on 7 counts of murder. He was found competent to stand trial in November 1975. So not quite death. The death penalty is off the table in Ohio because we are a death penalty state now. He was convicted on 2 counts, drawing consecutive terms of life imprisonment. So they really had enough to convict him on 2. I mean, Glatt is pretty much, they got him at the scene, they knew it.
Yeah.
But they're not sure when his shooting rampage began, which really is comforting when you think about it. And Long said originally he maybe shot 30 people over 4 years.
Oh my god.
So let's just say it's the same number.
Like average it
year.
out?
Yeah, let's do some math.
Be like 7, more than 7 a year.
You're better at math than me. Yeah, 7.5. This is not a math podcast. That's really my tagline, because it comes up a lot. Like, I don't do math.
Well, apparently in our last book, I was like, okay, so she was born in 1899 and she died in I was like 1990, and so she was obviously over 100 years old. And my mom was like, I think you did math wrong. I was like, probably.
Don't ask me to do math right. I found an app to do grades when I had to do grades.
Oh, that's nice.
It was very, because it was percentages. So like you get a percentage instead of points. So there were 3 confirmed kills. He later told a federal court psychologist that he fired around 100 black men, possibly killing 20. So we don't know.
It kind of blows my mind how they don't have any records of this for both of them then. Both of you, the people that you brought up, there's like just such lacking local police record keeping, which...
I think Tingler, it's just where it is. He's hitting more rural spots for B&Es, so the resources aren't there. And then he was in the Army, like, he was in the Air Force, so he moved around a bit. I mean...
Okay.
We were fans of true crime as a population, always, but the documentation, unless you, like... It was national news in that it appeared nationally, but it wasn't like Bundy and Gacy and all of these. I think if it was happening now, oh yeah, we would know every detail of this man's life.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, still, I think, like, even with, like, the true crime genre at large, I feel like you have to, a lot of the cases, the more popular cases are still, like, pretty white girls, you know? Or rich white girls.
Yeah. No, it's fair. That's why I like to do more diverse cases, so if you have them, send them to me. I'm willing to do the research on it. It's fine. If not, if it's still unsolved, I'll send it off to status pending, and they do an amazing job. So.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
They do unsolved cases and stuff like that. So, I mean, send them to me at domesticpodcast@gmail.com if you have, like, more not white majority
and
cases.
that wasn't, like, a thing about...
I like to do more of those cases because I think everyone's stories need to be heard. And as a popular media, let's say, and prominent media, it's not getting covered.
Yeah.
So I want to, let's look for the cracks and let's fill it in there.
Yeah.
That's the academic in my head. I'm like, someone's not doing this? Ooh, tell me everything.
I mean, it's kind of cool that the serial thing, I mean, because, like, the victim was an Asian girl, and then, the main suspect was someone, Adnan Syed, and so it's like, I mean, that's one of the biggest true crime cases ever now, and yet, like, it's still rare, I think, like, in the wider landscape for it, a story like that to get such coverage. I don't know.
I mean, think about it. Madeleine McCann had a documentary this year. Bundy had 2, like a documentary and a movie. Like,
yeah.
This is kind of also why I love Nothing Rhymes with Murder, because they go all over the world, so they're getting these different crimes and
that's cool.
Local crimes and stuff like that. So you're like, oh, I've never heard of this person. This is really awesome. Fascinating, and so check them out. Tell them I sent you. So let's talk about his 1975 confession, Long. And we're going to have some quotes. And I will share, there is a full YouTube account of his confession. So if you want to self-hate, probably go listen to it.
Wow.
Well, there was so much trouble between the colored and white, and the colored was looking like they were doing everything they could at the time. They made threats against the white people, end quote. So that's what he told Baker and another detective. Quote, they didn't want them, meaning white people, in West Dayton. It wasn't safe. It wasn't intelligible to safely go to work across West Dayton, and that's why I first started, end quote. He long described in his confession how he would get drunk on beer and whiskey and cross the bridge to the west side, because there is a river going through Dayton. On warm evenings, enough to roll down his windows. He drove his 1964 Oldsmobile at first, fired his sawed-off Marlin shotgun out the window at black men as they walked alone, often getting several victims at night. So it wasn't like, it was just every so often he would go out and shoot people for the sake of shooting people, which is not what you do. You deal with your problems.
Yeah. So the rhetoric, makes him sound like he's threatened or something, or like he feels like, which is usually the rhetoric, right? Is like, we have to protect, like, white purity or whatever. But he's like, oh, well, there were these black people threatening us, and so I got drunk and I shot them randomly. Like, that sounds ridiculous. But
white fragility, man. White fragility. Let me tell you, it's a thing. So you can imagine how popular he would be in prison, because black incarceration rates are higher than white incarceration rate. So to protect both black inmates and Long was confined at the U.S. Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri, under conditions of maximum security. He died in a federal prison in Minnesota in 1998. So that is 2 garbage people from Ohio.
That had very long lives, like pretty long lives. Well, 55 is kind of young, but this guy was born in the 20s, right?
Yeah, 27, so...
Mathing.
70 something, 71, depending on when his birthday is. Yeah. So, how do you feel now?
Ohio. Seems like they've had a rough history. I have actually my grandpa, I have some family in Ohio, and he would always like just randomly say something extremely racist, and I would be like, "Ooh, grandpa, not okay, grandpa." Like, he would call me, like, I'm Asian, and so he would, like, call me different things, and it would be like, I think that's not okay. I think that's an insult. I don't know. But I'm glad that they were caught.
Yes, we're very glad that they're caught.
This is a good thing.
Yeah, and I think they're both learning points. Like, hey, maybe eventually you're gonna move from burglary to murder if you keep burglaring enough.
Yeah. Like 13 plus times, probably not totally a safe person to be around. Making, like, not the best choices with their life,
Maybe we should work on helping them to not burglar and have jobs and get back into society.
Yeah.
Long just seemed like an angry white dude with mental health issues, and because it's documented that he had mental health issues. So that just means, hey, maybe we should improve our mental health facilities and availabilities. And hey, maybe we should try to integrate different cultures. They seem cool. Like we were talking about before. There might be dumplings involved. Dumplings are great.
Dumplings and avocado ranch dressing. Why does it need to be in either or? All of these things can exist wonderfully in the world.
No one's gonna get any of this because it was pre-recorded. So much ranch in my apartment right now, including avocado ranch,
which was new to me as a dressing, and so I was like, "Oh my god, this sounds amazing."
Do you want to cheer it up with a plug for your podcast, which is, if you need a true crime break, do check out 33% Pulp because it always makes me happy.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Linzi, and I have a podcast called 33% Pulp, and we read books in thirds and then release them over 3 weeks. So check us out now, or start with the books that we did with Courtney, which was Do Not Murder Before Christmas. And thank you. That's all I felt like I had something more to say, but just thanks.
I mean, the one I'm on, there is some singing happening. There are some bird noises. You forgot about that, didn't you?
Well, I did it too in the book because, like, you just have to, it's the angle. You have to do the sound effects. See, we can't not. Like, you just have to do it. It just comes out. So,
yeah, of course. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Next week, Linzi will continue her unofficial series.
Yeah. It was totally an accident. I'll tell you next week, but there's more accidental cannibalism. Tune in.
I just need to make a list of all the unofficial series at this point.
Oh, really? Are there others that, like, repeat guests that are like, oops, I did?
No, they're just mine. They're just personally mine.
Okay.
But yeah. So we'll see you next week, listeners. Bye!
Bye.
Hey, I thought I'd do something fun for my birthday month this year, and I would like you guys to play along. I would like you to do a tag with this podcast. So either share it with someone who's your best friend or someone you think would enjoy it. But I think that would be the best gift, is you guys sharing the podcast. Maybe, if you're stuck in the car for a couple hours, force your whole family to listen to a couple episodes. I don't know. Have fun with it. Also, if you do it, please tag me in any pictures because I would love to see all the friendship sharing podcast memories.
Hey, Lindsay, are you ever curious about those old books with the bargain bins?
Oh my god, yes. Hey, Daniel, would you be in a book club where...
Funny you ask, because that's our show, 33% Pulp. You, I, and a guest host each read a different third of a pulp novel and then recap the whole thing together.
We start with context, the author, genre, themes, and so on. By the end of the third episode, you'll have heard the main plot, our commentary, and confusion.
And sometimes we have companion episodes with related content from beyond the book with other podcasts. We're 33% Pulp and 100% hopeful you'll join. Bye!
Had a drink about an hour ago. will fill somewhere by the table, or maybe the floor.
Hey, we're the girls from the DisBeer and Distress podcast. We sit around drinking, talking about things that creep us out.
That is if we can get past our wildly inappropriate banter. We may not have our facts in order, but we sure have fun trying.
So if you're interested in hearing about things you wish you hadn't, then maybe swing by iTunes, Podbean, etc. and give your earbuds a nice little tickle with our podcast.
But be warned, if you came here for true facts, you're gonna be out of luck.
You can also find us on Twitter at beer_dis.
Or the Twitter.
Cult of Domesticity. We're available on all podcatchers. Remember to rate, review, subscribe to help spread the word, or just force other people to listen to it. Our Facebook and Twitter are at Domestic Podcasts, and our Instagram is at the Cult of Domesticity. We also have podcast merch at Threadless. As well, if you want to support us financially or show some appreciation, we have a PayPal tip jar and a Patreon, which has some pretty great perks. Any topic suggestions, feel free to email us at domesticpodcast@gmail.com. Remember to stay domestic and cult-free.